Bring Your Own Security Radio is just about ready to start. Hosted by certified ethical hacker and CISSP Dave the IT Guy. Sit back as we talk about hackers, security, crypto, and other things you should be paying attention to. Along with our many guests, we'll also talk about tools and methods to get the job done to keep your data where it belongs, with you. Okay, Dave is up to the mic and ready to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's right. I am Dave, the IT guy. I am up to the mic, and tonight we're going to be talking about some security monitoring, event monitoring, data correlation, event correlation, all kinds of good stuff. Hopefully, by the end of this hour with us tonight, you'll be able to sit back and think, man, why don't we have that in our environment? Or if you already have it, maybe you'll think about looking at other alternatives. Maybe you'll reconfigure how you currently have your stuff going on, right? There are lots of ways to skin the same cat, so to speak, around IT. We all know that. And security and SIEM monitoring is no different. Lots of options. So let's get into it. However, before we jump in, I want to say a quick hello to my friends over at the Worldwide Standards Gurus, for lack of a better phrase. I'm talking about the American National Standards, I can't even talk tonight, Institute, otherwise known as ANSI. They are what makes the world go round. And standards is what dictates what is round or what is square, right? Check them out over at blog.ansi.org/pod. They're doing some podcasting. They got some shows going on, some great information. They're great people. They've been around Bring Your Own Security Radio now for almost a year, so I really appreciate them hanging out, supporting me where they can, and there we go. So ANSI, blog.ansi.org/pod. Check them out, the American National Standards Institute. Right on. So let's jump into tonight. So why are we talking about SIEM? You know, depending on what you read or who you talk to or whatever sector that you're in from a business world, whether it's healthcare, retail, manufacturing, whatever. So some people even say, oh, man, that's old school. That's old news. There are these new technologies out there. We got to invest in this, that, or the other, right? But logs, I mean, it doesn't matter if you've been in IT now more than 20 years like me, or if you've been in IT 20 minutes. You know, the basic raw dog down to the bare bones answer to figuring out a problem is troubleshooting, right? Getting into log, event viewer, log management, checking out what happened on your devices or on your servers, maybe in your transit, right? So somewhere in your routers or your firewalls, etc., your switches. Maybe you've got to go back and take a look at SNMP traps. You know, there's a lot of different things going on in different areas. And by taking a look at these different logs, you'll do what's called event correlation, right? You'll take a look and say, wow, man, on my firewall, I saw this thing. But when I was doing some tracing on my server, I saw this thing a little while later. And between A and B, you know, I found this other thing sitting over here. This weird trap came up on my switch, right? Or my another device that you might have in the middle, some type of DMZ device maybe. Lots of places where artifacts, evidence, right, can come up. And you can put those together manually, right? You can get in there, write your notes, copy and paste files, do packet tracing, grab your whatever packet filtering software that you got going on and see what you can put together. And you can spend hours, days, right, just trying to put together the hints at what happened. Or you could have some tools, some SIEM tools that allow you to automatically put together this information and correlate, hey, when this happened over here, a few seconds or minutes later, this thing over here triggered, and all of a sudden I saw some file access things going on a file server that shouldn't have happened. Maybe you'll start seeing some other information pop up that you didn't expect to see, and you're like, hey, dude, what's up, right? So that's where we're at tonight with SIEM. We're going to talk about very specific tools that you can use. We're going to talk about kind of why, kind of where, right? And then what's the alternatives? And I just kind of hinted a little bit about the alternatives. Like you could do this stuff manually, right? Or you can kind of add some tools in there. A phrase I like to use is auto magic, right? You can auto magically just find stuff, right? Well, clearly there's no place in network security for magic, right? So we put these tools in place, or we just get down to old school manual digging, right? So, and nobody wants to do that anymore, right? Nobody's got time for that. Before we continue on, I'm going to take one quick break for about a minute. For those of you that know me, you know how much I love heavy metal. I just can't get away from it. I love going to the big 3-day festival type events. Here in Ohio, up in Columbus, Ohio, there is a new event this year at Matt Free Stadium, which is where the Columbus Crew soccer team plays. And this thing called Sonic Temple Festival this year is their first year, and they're going to be kick-ass, and I will be there. So take a second and check this out.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody's going to the party, have a real good time. Are you ready? Get up!
The Sonic Temple Art and Music Festival has arrived. Matt Free Stadium, Columbus, Ohio. 3 days, May 17th through the 19th. America's #1 rock music festival is here with Foo Fighters, System of a Down, Disturbed, Sonic Temple with Bring Me the Horizon, Ghost, Hailstorm, Lamb of God, The Cult, The Hives, The Struts, Meshuggah, The Distillers, and rare appearances by Joe Jett and Prodigy. Go to SonicTempleFestival.com for everything. The Foo Fighters, System of a Down, Disturbed, Bring Me the Horizon, Ghost, and special comedy tent headliners, Andrew Dice Clay, Henry Rollins, and more. Go to SonicTempleFestival.com. See ya at the temple.
Man, before we go any further, I do want to say my condolences to friends and family, of course, and the bandmates of Keith Flint, lead singer, and one of the original members of Prodigy. So even though they are in this commercial about showing up, at this point nobody knows if Prodigy will even do their tour this year that they actually had just scheduled and was getting ready to kick off in the Americas. So Keith Flint, rest in peace, and for the rest of the Prodigy fans and family, my condolences to you. So, right on. All right, now that we get that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about SIEM, right? So let's talk about why you want to do it. And already I've hinted at some of the whys, right? We don't want to have to spend an entire set of days trying to figure out what happened to a server, all right? So what does SIEM do, and some of the tools out there? There's some big, huge names in this field. You got Logarithm, you got Splunk, right? There's a company called Power Admin. There's a company called Event Tracker. So there are different people doing more or less the same thing. By and large, the primary differences are, of course, price. We all know that. But also capability. Yes, you're going to get what you pay for, and sometimes you're going to overpay for what you get. Other times, you kind of find your sweet spot, and that's partly what I want to talk about tonight. So let's talk about the more well-known names in this space, and that's, of course, Logarithm and Splunk, right? They do a lot of things, and usually if somebody says, hey, what's the top 5, top 10 SIEM tools, these two come up, and rightly so. Logarithm does things like behavioral analytics. It's called User Entity and Behavioral Analytics. UEBA, I think, is the acronym. All kinds of acronyms, right? NTBA, which is Network Traffic Behavioral Analytics. So they do a lot of things, right? And they get into really trying to predict and adapt network traffic and events that they see going on between different devices, whether they be routers and switches, whether they be different firewall or security appliances, whether they be servers, and even to some extent desktops/laptops, end user devices. One of the things, before I go further, let me throw out there for those of you who are monitoring things already, how many of you are monitoring your printers? Not print servers, but the actual printers themselves. Raise your hand. Come on. It might be one of you, might be two of you, but I doubt there's too many. Just raise your hand. Well, let me tell you, you need to be monitoring your printers. A lot of these printers have, by default these days, have a wireless network card embedded in them that's on by default, or even a wireless server, broadcasting a signal out there for other things to reach out and connect, right? Also, a lot of these have their own built-in spooler and things like that that are on by default. So, especially at the small and medium-sized companies, small IT shops, or maybe you got a consultant and you bought, whatever, HP, a Canon, some other printer, right? They brought in, even if you have like a managed printing service, like one of these outside companies come in and bring the printers in and they manage everything for you, chances are they're coming in and most of the install is default, right? They come in, they configure IP addressing, the basic network stuff, but they're probably not turning off these other features, which are now open to compromise on your network. They're another point of entry. And these things, because they can be spoofed, their IP addresses, who's checking printers these days to see if somebody's spoofing an IP off of a printer so that they can authenticate back to your network access policies to act like they're on your network, right? If it's a hacker or some other person that's got a remote access tool and they're spoofing a printer IP address, right? Who's checking that? Probably nobody. Well, you need to be monitoring your printers and look for weirdo activity that might be coming off. Did somebody hack into your printer and install some small piece of code or some other daemon that's doing something it shouldn't be doing, right? So pay attention, printers. And now that we've said that, think about what other IoT type of devices are on your network. And do you have your current monitoring tools taking a look at those things? And if not, why not? Right? You need to start taking a good hard look at what's really on your network. What could be burping out data, right, in some way, or what could be spoofed to look like it's authenticated or harmless, right? So take a look at these things. Wireless cameras that get an IP address off of your Wi-Fi. Anything that can be a network addressable device needs to be monitored. So yeah, I digress, but I wanted to throw that out there. So hopefully you just thought of something or just heard something that you hadn't thought of before. And if you have, then you probably are thinking of things that I'm not even thinking of. So please send me a tweet over at BYOS Radio and tweet at me. Say, hey, Dave, did you ever think to monitor this or that? Man, I would love to hear new devices or new ideas. I'm always wanting to learn. I work in the healthcare industry at a hospital system that has a hospital plus 19 other facilities that I am the security administrator for. So I'm always looking at my network and looking at things that get bought by our different departments, lab and radiology and the pharmacy and surgery and all these other departments, the emergency department. They bring all these different devices in, and sometimes, they don't follow the rules. They get a vendor comes in, says, hey, I'm going to bring this demo. I'll leave it with you for a week, right? And all of a sudden, my monitoring agents are going ballistic because some rogue thing just showed up on my network, and I have to go physically track down where it's at, why it's there, and what it's supposed to be doing. So I digress. But I'd love to hear about your ideas as well. So at BYOS Radio on Twitter, please shoot me a tweet. Let me know what else you are thinking on this topic. But let's get back into it. So Logarithm, Splunk, both of them, they do a lot of different core basic like user behavior analytics and network traffic analytics, stuff like that. Their whole goal is to take a look at, what's your overall security posture, and they use big, cool looking GUIs with graphics and visualizations, and now they're getting into like cloud infrastructure and like software as a service, platform as a service type of monitoring capabilities, so that they can see and visualize for you what's going on throughout your entire infrastructure stake, right? Where do you got things in the cloud? You got things sitting local. Where's your stuff, right? So some of the strengths for Logarithm over, say, a Splunk is that if you want to do things like contained stuff, right? Like, hey, things are in one core application. My Logarithm things are all kind of right here. Or I want to kind of bring together a few other monitoring things. Like, hey, I've got some Cisco's and I got some Palo Alto's and I got some HP's, and I want to kind of bring it all together and kind of put it all under one umbrella, and I want to be able to take a look at all this different kind of stuff, right? So Logarithm is really good about that. Whereas Splunk, they kind of have this big thing, this big animal, right? That's, hey, you got user-based monitoring, you have network-based stuff, apps. You can start monitoring different apps. Excuse me, I get hiccups. But you can monitor, like, hey, what's the app doing at a very granular level? So you've got a bigger, what word do I want to use, but ecosystem of things, right? I've got things I'm monitoring, and I've got app software, and I'm looking at what's the software trying to do on my network, man. It says it's this kind of software, and it's supposed to be sending a print job over here, but in the background it's also reaching out to some other server for some kind of update or some other phone home kind of thing, right? So you get into Splunk and you're like, hey, what's all this stuff? So there's a lot of stuff, but if you're a small or medium-sized business, I mean, you got to sit back and think for a minute. What's too much, right? Depending on your staff size, even though a lot of this is automated, you still have to go in and review it. You have to decide, okay, I set up all these alerts, and now things are alerting at me. Now you have to go back and decide, okay, did I overset my alerts, right? Am I getting alert fatigue? Is there too much stuff? And I need to tone this crap down a little bit so that I can have some manageable, actionable information that's actually kind of important, really important, critically important, and it may be, okay, it's kind of something, but it's not that big of a deal. It can wait, right? So you have to start categorizing the stuff, and if you've never used these tools before, of course, you can kind of pare that down as you go and as you learn, or you log in, or not log in, but you connect with support from these companies, and they'll help you out, right? But one of the things that I'm not a huge fan of, but just because others might be, is let's talk about ratings, right? So there's this organization website place called IT Central Station, and I was taking a look at that yesterday, and from a user perspective that goes to that site and kind of gives ratings on different things, right? They decided that Logarithm, on a scale of 1 to 10, Logarithm averaged out at 8.7. So that's the users saying, here's how cool I think it is, right? Splunk, not far off. They were at 8.0 even out of 10. And then Gartner, the peer insights, which a lot of people in our industry really kind of fall back on as the de facto, hey, if they say it's this, then they're pretty awesome. When you're talking about Gartner, they go on a scale of 1 to 5, and Logarithm got a 4.4, and Splunk got a 4.3. So you can see that they're both pretty neck and neck, but Logarithm always kind of was just a shade higher than Splunk when it came to both user-based ratings and not. I also want to talk about some capabilities like Splunk can take uh, petabytes daily. Petabytes, yes, daily. Whereas Logarithm is scalable and their architecture is a little bit more decentralized. So you have probably not so much as petabytes before you start having issues with performance. But still, when we fall back again to the ratings that we just talked about, people rate both pretty evenly. Um, from a delivery perspective, Splunk can be a software local or a cloud-based delivery format, and Logarithm can either be an appliance, software-based, or a virtual instance. So they're not really cloud-based, right? So Logarithm is a little bit more hands-on. You're going to manage it, whereas Splunk, you could offshore that a little bit away. And then pricing. Again, I don't really want to throw out too much on specific pricing because we all know that A, stuff changes, and B, you might be able to negotiate yourself a discount. But on average, Splunk is about $1,800 US dollars a gig a day. So, but we're talking about log data, right? So, how much data is included in a gig? That's a bunch, right? That's a whole bunch. So, $1,800 a gig a day, whereas Logarithm, that's Splunk, right? And then Logarithm is more of a subscription price. So, based on how much volume you're going to do, you kind of get a one size fits all price. If you're going to do X amount of data in a day, week, or month, you'll get this dollar price. Doesn't matter if it shows up in a day or a week. If it's this total volume, this is how much you pay. Whereas Splunk is really a daily based ingestion rate. So keep that in mind. It's very confusing, or at least it can be confusing. But Logarithm's pricing starts at right about $28,000, and you can get some subscription pricing going on too. And we just said what Splunk is, $1,800 a gig a day. You have other things like IBM's QRadar, you had ArcSight, Alien Vault, SolarWinds, right? So there's a few others, but there's one more that I want to talk about, and it's very much a lesser known entry into this space, but no less useful. And that company is called PowerAdmin. You can check them out at poweradmin.com. Now, when you go to their website, I will be the first to tell you that logging on the PowerAdmin site, you're looking at okay, it's pretty basic, right? Not a whole lot of stuff going on there, but a lot of information. Now, what I'm going to tell you is the hospital that I work at, we demoed QRadar, Logarithm, and Splunk, and Splunk immediately kind of was out of the equation because A, it was just too big, too much for what we needed. Plus, quite frankly, it was like triple the price of had we bought Logarithm. Splunk was going to be almost triple the price of Logarithm for our environment based on their pricing model. So Splunk was gone for us pretty quickly in the demo process. Logarithm did a lot of great things for us. Their event correlation was pretty sweet, and we found some great things going on with our environment because of it. However, it didn't, for what it offered, the PowerAdmin gave us a lot of that same information in a different way and much cheaper. So let's just get that up front, that when you compare, say, QRadar to Logarithm to Splunk to PowerAdmin, The pricing is night and day difference, and Power Admin is less expensive. I don't want to use the word cheap because I absolutely don't want to give you the impression that the software is cheap. But it is less expensive. And if you are a small or medium-sized business, and to me, medium would be 1,000 users or less, or 1,000 servers or less, 1,000 devices maybe, that you want to monitor, such as switches and routers and things like that. So in my environment, I have right about 1,000 users, and I have about 350 servers. I've got about 90 switches, and between my firewalls and other security devices, less than 50. I don't want to give away our entire architecture, right? So with that said, Power Admin has three tools, three software products that they offer. One's called Server Monitor, one's called File Site, and one is called Storage Monitor. Server Monitor does exactly what it sounds like. It monitors servers, although it also can be applied to switches and routers and other things on your network, and it is agentless. You can put an agent for other reasons, but 99% of the stuff that it monitors is agentless on everything. File Site gets into tracking and auditing file access, deletes, moves, things like that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then Storage Monitor monitors directory, file owners. So if you've got a whatever SAN infrastructure that you have, whether it be something kind of old like a HP SAN, left-hand SAN, or you might have some of the newer stuff, right? So it just depends on what you got. Their Storage Monitor is used for that tool. But let's get back to Logarithm and Splunk, and let's talk about how Power Admin compares. Now, I realize it seems like this conversation all of a sudden has gone into a Power Admin sales pitch, and I don't mean it to be that way. If you can afford Logarithm and Splunk, you're going to get more detailed information, event correlation, and higher end data than you're going to get out of Power Admin. That's just truth. However, what I do really, really like about Power Admin is that it's very customizable, and when you get online on the phone or on instant messenger chat on their support site with them, you are actually talking to the founders, the developers of these three pieces of software. You're on the phone with Doug, who's the CEO and one of the primary developers for this stuff. You're on chat with some of these other guys, and they're awesome. They stay on chat with you or get on the phone with you, remote in. They support their stuff. They will make sure that their stuff works for you like it's supposed to, and they stay on with you until it does. They're great. Also, if you come up with an idea like, hey, Doug, I need this or that, or I'd like to try this or that out, what do you think? He'll sit back, he'll code it, he'll send you a piece of that code or through an update on your server, and let's try it out, man. Let's see how it works. And if it works, hey, can I put this out as a patch into my to the rest of my customers? We'll send a patch out. So great. And they've got some pretty big companies that use them: Comcast, Bridgestone, Intel, Chevron, Symantec, Panasonic. Who else? Merrill Lynch, right? Financial industry. Callaway Golf, the Social Security Administration, Level 3 Communications, Rite Aid, and a bunch of others. So NASA. So they're no slouches, and like I said, they're at least a third of the price of everybody else, and do some great stuff. So let's talk a little bit about, I briefly have mentioned, what are we going to monitor? We're going to monitor switches, or we're going to monitor servers, right? Routers, firewalls, wireless access points, so you can take a look at your traffic. If you want to do event correlation, you need as much data ingestion from whatever thing might might create a log entry of some sort, right? So as much of that as you can ingest, you can turn around and use that data, right? Create reports, look at flow, look at correlation. And although Power Admin is not yet at the level of Splunk and Logarithm, it is very easy to see when you look at your Power Admin server monitor and you look at file monitoring. It's easy to see, right? The event correlation, even though it's not done automatically, you're not digging into every log of everything. It's all pretty much right there in your face. So nice. One of the other things I really like about the FileSite product is from a ransomware perspective, you can set up some really cool alert patterns. So, effectively, if 20 things change file names in 3 seconds, 5 seconds, you know what that means, right? You know ransomware is attacking your stuff. And then you can create automatic things, right? What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to disconnect this, turn that off, right? You can create some great automation behind the scenes on your own that is pretty slick. So, yep. So we're going to get off the topic of Power Admin only. We're going to talk about all 3, all 5, all 6 of the tools that we've brought up tonight. There's a bunch of them. But you also want to be able to take a look at remote things too, right? So even though you might have a cloud environment, say Office 365, right? You want to know if Office 365, your instance of it, is having a problem. You want to be able to know that without having to look at, Microsoft's dashboard by logging in, right? You want to know. You want monitoring there. So, we're back to the part of the conversation about what are we going to monitor? What is in your environment that you need to care about? Do you have point-to-point, or either point-to-point connections, VPNs? Maybe you have some other tunnels that are private. Maybe you have site-to-site VPNs with vendors or clients, and you need to monitor their stuff. Maybe you just need to monitor the connection, that you have between you and them. So it could be something as simple as a ping, right? Did I miss 5 pings? Send me an alert, right? Did I right? My trace routes don't work anymore. Whatever it is. So different things, right, cost you different heartache, different pains, right? So yeah. So I'm going to take a few seconds, clear my throat, drink a little bit of water, and while I do that, I'm going to just play this quick tidbit about my buddies over at Kaspersky.
If you like Bring Your Own Security, you should check out the Transatlantic Cable podcast from Kaspersky Lab. They look at cybersecurity issues that affect everyone and also make sure the podcast fits your busy day by keeping them to 20 minutes or less. Check it out and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Right on. So, yeah, they've got some great stuff going on over there as well. I love talking about other people's podcasts and having different content providers featured with me and me with them, right? This is where we all make our bread and butter, is sharing knowledge, understanding what's going on in the world of technology. Even though I try to do some deep dive stuff here and there on some episodes, I also sometimes wonder if I go too deep, because I don't want to give away tricks or secrets of how we defend, as the white hats, the good guy hackers of the world. The black hats know what's up, right? They're not stupid. The true black hats, they are, you got APT out of North Korea, you got Fancy Bear out of Russia, and you've got some other really top-notch echelon level hackers in this world. But then you've got some of these middle-of-the-road up-and-comers, single one-off people trying to teach themselves stuff. And I'm all for learning, but I'm definitely not down for, giving you the roadmap, right? I'm not going to tell you how to hack me. I'm not going to tell you how to defeat a certain thing, right? I'm not going to tell you that. So yeah, we're good. Share the knowledge, share the love, hack the planet, all the good stuff from the old movie, right? All right. So SIM monitoring as a whole has really kind of it's been weird over the last, let's just give it 6 years. Weird in a way that for a long time really kind of nobody was doing it. It was definitely a very manual thing. And then all of a sudden these tools started really busting out on the scene. And early on the pricing was just far too expensive for everybody. And then of course different companies coming out drove down the pricing. And now many organizations do monitoring in some way or another, right? So why wouldn't you monitor? Is there a reason that you have? Do you think that your environment is too small, or that you really don't have information that anybody wants to hack? If you are, I don't know, maybe you work from home, right? You've got a small business and you work from home. You don't store any data locally because maybe you remote into some cloud-based architecture to do your job, right? So you're not storing anything. So you're thinking, Dave, I don't need to monitor my crap. I don't really have anything, right? You might be right. The best advice on something like that would be make sure you are using a solid VPN service to encrypt your data so that while you are on the internet, somebody's not sniffing your traffic at the ISP level. But short of that, you're probably right. There is really no solid reason to monitor your environment if you're truly that onesie twosie kind of operation. But if you're storing data of any type anywhere, even if it's just in your My Docs folder or on your desktop even, right? You need to see what else is going on, even on your own local machine, right? So you need to take a look at different tools, whether they be free or not, and see what works for you, what tells you, oh, hey, somebody just opened this file remotely, even though I was on my computer, I didn't see it open, right? Or they copied the file across because they installed a remote access tool because of a phishing email that you opened and you didn't know it. And on the back end, they opened up a remote shell and copied all of your stuff right off your computer without you knowing, right? Monitoring tools would tell you that that happened, or it could tell you that it happened, depending on which tool that you have and how you tune it. So don't get the impression that you're too small, right? And that you shouldn't use these tools, or if they are a little pricey, find a reason to say yes to this stuff if you can, right? And if you can't, then that's okay. Learn how to read log entries, event viewer entries. There are all kinds of free tools out there that will parse your event viewer logs from your local computer and put it in a more readable format that isn't mind-numbingly confusing or might give you a bunch of event IDs and PIDs and things like that, process IDs that make no sense to you if you don't have that kind of experience. So go out there and look. There are definitely tools that will help you at every level. I also want to get into, since we're talking about event or network monitoring as a whole, or system monitoring, depending on your point of view, there's no reason why you can't run, the conventional Wireshark and other type of packet sniffers. And whether or not you run them, all the time, clearly that's probably not feasible for most people. But random day of the week, time of day, event-based times. So if you're having an outage with, say, one of your cloud providers, run Wireshark for a little while and even if you don't see what the answer is, or maybe you already know what the answer, why it's down, capture those packets and save them. And then the next time an event, either the exact same event or an event like it happens, then you'll have, you can capture the data from that second event or third or whatever, and then compare those two packet captures. See if you notice any, like, hey, both times that this went down, I see this other IP was on my network. Hey, maybe that's an intruder causing some sort of problem, a denial of service, or some other thing, right, based on an intruder or some other weirdo thing. So pay attention, right? There's reasons to try different things. Network monitoring, by and large, isn't a turn it on and forget about it until somebody, till an alert starts dinging, critical, all hands red alert, or somebody else asks you, hey, do you know why this thing happened, whatever this thing is, right? And then you have to go back and pull up all those log entries and say, oh, yeah, I see it now. I know why it happened. Or, nope, I don't know. I have to investigate further, right? Network slash event management monitoring like this is not a set it and forget it thing, regardless of what some of these vendors tell you. I remember sitting at, was it DEF CON or Black Hat? It must have been Black Hat. DEF CON doesn't do it. So I was at Black Hat, last few years, but 2 years ago I was sitting at this at this presentation, and one of the vendors, and I won't call them out, but they're pretty well known, was doing this big demo of their stuff, and their GUI looked really cool, kind of a black GUI, the globe, and all these, electronic tracers flying around the screen showing you how fast the data is moving and where it's going, and great visual graphics, right? And they're like, once you turn this on and you set your parameters, you turn on the automation, like if this, do that, and let the tools do the work for you, right? So, you turn around and you got everything configured, you hit save, you try a few test runs with it, make sure that the alerts are responding appropriately, and then the correct or appropriate corrective actions happen. And you're like, yep, I am good, man, my network is safe, on to the next thing, right? Well, hackers and threats evolve. And most of these tools, no matter what they tell you about machine learning and AI, right, machines can't learn based on programs and based on other things. So they can learn within a certain set of parameters or guidelines. But if humans go and figure out this new trick, right, you've got to teach the computer to recognize that new trick. So monitoring is not set it and forget it. You need to go back and review your settings, your configs. You need to even go and look at the log, the data that it collected over the course of whatever, a day, a week, a month, a quarter, however often you think it's necessary to review. But go back and take a look and say, hey, man, that's good. I'm good. It's detecting the things I thought. I read about this other thing. It looks like it saw that once, so I know that it understands how to detect that, right? Or you might read about something, and you're like, man, I wonder if the way I have things can detect it, right? So you can craft your little test, right, and try to send a faked version of that, whatever that thing is, that new attack vector, whatever, and you send a fake version of it at your environment to see if it triggers, right? You got to do it. You have to think like a hacker. You got to act like a hacker at times, and you have to make sure that your stuff knows how to identify it. Otherwise, it's useless, right? It's a brick, electronic brick. So yeah, that's SIEM. That's network monitoring. Lots of great stuff. The CIO review happened to write an article about a lot of these companies: Splunk, Logarithm, ArcSight, QRadar, and PowerAdmin, and they did a great comparison is a great word to say, of the organization. So go check them out over on CIOreview.com and look at, what do they say about these? Don't just take my word for it, but I can tell you that they are very much on board with Power Admin and their people, but clearly they are also on board with Logarithm and Splunk because of just the breadth of what those two organizations do, and their software can do. So, yeah. All right. So next week, I am going to, I hope, let me rephrase that. So, a lot of times I will schedule a guest who is in the technology field. I generally do not like to have salespeople. I'm not here to sell you stuff, even though tonight kind of sounded like that a little bit, but that was not the intent. So next week, I think I'm going to have a person that's going to come on, and we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into OWASP. And not necessarily just the OWASP Top 10, but some of the tools used to do application security testing. And when I say deep dive, I mean we're talking about possibly as deep as someone who wrote the code, right, and who developed this stuff from the ground up. So this particular person, I don't want to call him out and say his name over the air just yet, because he has been honest with me up front, telling me about how he needs to travel over the next few weeks for his job, and how he might say yes and then a day later have to back out on me. So if all things go well, next week we're going to be talking about OWASP. And if not, I'm not going to actually waste the topic. This guy has such a great mind on that particular topic that I'm not just going to go find somebody else. So if he's not available, I will pull it back and we'll jump into another topic. So just check me out at Twitter at BYOS Radio, and I will certainly post where we're going to be. Usually I will tweet out on Sunday night with a confirmed topic and guest, and in that way I only have 2 days for somebody to cancel on me if it has to be that way. So, but yeah, check me out next week. Tuesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. I appreciate that you came on. You joined up with me tonight, and you listened up. And I do want to say thank you one more time to my buddies over at ANSI, the standards people, American National Standards Institute. Their phrase is awesome. Standards what make the world go round, and they also dictate what is round. And I love that entire approach. So thank you to them. Check them out over at blog.ansi.org/pod. And then also thank you to my friends over at Kaspersky and over at the Sonic Temple Music Festival. I can't wait to go see that event in May. So if you're in Ohio or you think it will be in May, hit me up, because starting late March here, we're going to be doing some Twitter contests. And at the end of April, I will be announcing ticket winners of 3-day full passes to Sonic Temple Festival. So make sure that you are tuning in and staying current. I'll do some type of Twitter contest with hashtags and @tweets and that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be pretty awesome. Man, that's about it. What do you have on your mind? I think what I find, or what I have been finding lately, is I've been in the IT field now over 21 years. I've got 19, I lost count, certifications. And I mean like high-end certifications, like I have the CISSP, I have the Certified Ethical Hacker, MCSEs from all the way back from NT40 all the way up to 2012, ITIL, etc. But I also have vendor certs. So, different wireless. I have Ruckus certifications. I have Cisco certifications for Wi-Fi. Ruckus. If you've never heard of them, check out Ruckus Wireless. They're awesome. Matter of fact, Ruckus is better than Aruba in my mind. I've installed both. I've had as many as 4,000 access point system at a college, a major university, and we ripped out the Aruba and put Ruckus in its place. So you can tell me all you want about that, or even tell me all you want about Cisco Wi-Fi, and tell me how there's nothing better and it can't be this, that, and the other. I guarantee you, Ruckus is a player in the wireless field. They're a player to the extent that, again, their pricing is roughly half that of Cisco. Their throughput is almost 1.8 times faster. Their signal density, as far as like how many devices can be connected simultaneously in the same square foot, is 1.7 times that of a Cisco device. It's major. When you compare how many access points that you have to deploy to cover the same space, Ruckus is generally at 75%. So if you have to deploy 100 Cisco access points to cover a space to get the density and the coverage you need, you would need 75 Ruckus access points on average to do the same job. And that's real truth. You can go look that up. So I digress. I get off of the topic of SIEM, but I love wireless. I love checking out wireless. I love trying to determine what's interfering with wireless. I like looking at how different things change a wireless topology, what kind of construction materials. And because I work for the healthcare industry, what kind of like radiology type of machines, or if a laboratory machine is putting out a specific frequency or a harmonic because something is spinning real fast as a test, right? Different harmonics happen, and how does that affect wireless signal? So if somebody's in a lab and they say, man, my wireless keeps dropping on me, I get to go and play with those tools to figure out what's up with that. So I love some wireless, baby. But go check out Ruckus. They're great. I love them. What else? All kinds of stuff. But anyway, so the point being, I digress because I've been in this field for so long, and I get on these shows, and like tonight, it's like it's all me talking, and so yeah, it's experience based. Some of it, of course, is opinion based, and I don't always like to put it out there that my opinion is the only one, or the only right one, or even right at all. Sometimes I have an opinion, and I turn around and I'm like, oh crap. I don't know why I thought like that. I was wrong to begin with, right? I don't like that. So come tweet at me, give me your opinions, give me your ideas. I'd love to hear that sort of stuff. And maybe, just maybe, you and I can get together and I'll have you on the show, and we'll either we'll talk about your experiences and why some topics really good. Maybe we'll debate opinions. Maybe I'll think one thing and you'll think another. So tweet at me. Tell me who you are. Tell me something that you think. Tell me something that you believe. Tell me something that you know. And let's have some fun with those topics. I'm all for it. Maybe you have a blog of your own. Maybe you have some other IT thingy. Maybe you wrote a book, right? Maybe you're writing some software. Hell, maybe you're doing some research. Maybe you're some black hat and you want to come on the show with a pseudonym and not tell anybody where you live and route yourself over 14 router hops to get to me and get on the air with me. I'm down. So, let's have some fun. All right. That's enough. It's right about 9:53 in the East. We can call it short a little bit early tonight. We'll let everybody take a chance to get to bed early tonight. So I appreciate you jumping in with me, having some fun, listening to me. Hopefully you learned something. Maybe, when I told you about printers and monitoring your printers and other IoT things, maybe hopefully you take that to heart and you're like, oh, crap, I better go and review my stuff tomorrow or even tonight, right? Maybe you just can't wait anymore. So you're going to jump in and review it from home, right? No, I'm kidding. All right. Thanks again. I am Dave the IT guy. I'm going to cut you loose. I appreciate your time, and see you next week. We're out.
Okay, that's it. Hopefully you've been inspired to learn more, or at the very least, heard something new that you didn't know already. Don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at BYOS Radio and Facebook at facebook.com/BYOS Radio. You can download each episode from iHeartRadio, Apple Music, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and just about any other podcasting software you like. You can also listen live every Tuesday night at 9 Eastern from the BringYourOwnSecurity.net website. You might even learn CPE for your IT certifications, so tune in weekly.